Hello everyone, this is Ildiko here. This project today is about creating these 3 mixed media cards, index cards, where I needed to do some testing that set of tissue paper that I found at Target. And you know how it is, sometimes you go home and you just want to try something that you found in the stores. So what I did was cut out 3 sections of the tissue paper and glued them down, then sealed them all with Liquitex matte medium. And then I found this stencil and decided to add long words that would cover half of the card. And I couldn't find 3 words that were long enough, so I picked understand, patience, and then the words wish and dream that created at the end a short phrase. After I finished stenciling the words, I selected 3 other stencils, background stencils, and a light pink acrylic paint, and I added more background details on each index card using all different patterns just to make sure that the background got filled up. And also I had to tone down the background color a little bit. Next, I took out my favorite script stamp and purple archival ink and continued adding details for the background. The next step was adding more details still on the background, and I selected 3 different stamps that had numbers as the design element, and I randomly picked an index card and a number stamp, and I stamped the numbers using black archival ink. This was really to fill up the background and still continue toning everything down. When that was finished, I've selected 3 flower stems and I stamped the flower images on tissue paper so I could easily add them onto my index cards. It's one of the simplest method of adding a stamped image onto a background that has texture already. After I finished stamping, I lifted the images out with using water and a paintbrush. It's one of the other simple ways of working with tissue paper image. You just simply go around the edges and the tissue paper almost melts away, leaving you the image you wanted to use. The last image, I didn't need that postage stamp collage, so I went around really close to the edge of the flower and lifted off the extra elements. Then I started working on the index cards again. At this point, I decided that I wanted the words to stand out more from the background, and instead of adding on a sticker or stamped word or phrase, I wanted these to become the main elements of the index cards. So I took out the word stencil again and got some more gesso, and I added another generous layer of gesso over the words. This way you can see the words really nicely show up on the background. After this was done, I took out more gesso and the flower images. This is one of my new tricks where I add the gesso on the back of the stamped images on the tissue paper, and that way I can help these images stand out after they get glued down onto the projects that I'm working on. Sometimes I saw people working on their journals or other projects put the gesso on their actual projects and then glue the image on top of it, but that way the gesso sometimes was too much, so I decided to give this trick a try, and it works just like charm. Then I continued with gluing down the flowers randomly on these cards, and I use again the Liquitex matte medium. It's 3 different spots on 3 different cards. I didn't want them to be in the same places. And when this was done, I fiddled around with one of the flowers. I cut off the excess, but the biggest flower was just a little bit felt out of balance. And so after I cut off these pieces, I decided that I needed those small extra shapes or extra flower petals still on my card. So I took out gel medium and glued these trimmed off flower petals right on the card, and then I also again sealed them by going on the top of them. When I finished with gluing everything down, I took out some watercolor pencils in orange, red, yellow, in the color of the background paper, the tissue paper, and I tried to blend in the tissue paper edges that were outside of the flower petals. And basically I am finished at this point with the backgrounds. I took out the archival ink and I went around each one of the cards, edged the cards to give it a finished look. After that, I needed to work on the words a little bit. First, I used a sparkly gel pen and I went over each one of the letters to make them stand out a little bit more. And after that was finished, I took out a water-soluble graphite pencil and outlined each letter. First, I only wanted to give some shadow on one side, but then I decided I needed more contrast, so I went around every single letter. Then I took out the sparkly gel pen again and I added some more sparkles on the flowers. I wanted to make sure that the sparkles show up somewhere else on these cards, so there is a little bit more cohesion with between the different parts. After that, I needed to find images that could go on these cards. The first thing I found was this crow sticker from an old Halloween sticker set, and I just needed the bird, so I cut it off the skull and glued it down. And to make it stand out even more from the background, I decided that I needed a white outline. So I went around the whole image using paint pen. That was the only thing that worked on the background, paints and collaged materials. Here I'm adding some finishing touches, and I used a Pentart brand pearl pen. I think that's what you call them. And I added a couple of dots at the end of the words, under the words, in the corner, and I also added it over the eye of the crow. This second card is for the patience card. I'm using a bird sticker. It's a foam sticker. And the image was quite sloppily cut around, so I needed to go and trim it very neatly, and then I had to edge it very carefully with the black ink to make sure that it looked finished. So I added archival ink, and then I could stick the bird down. I fiddled a little bit with the legs because I cut it off and then I didn't have good access to it. So you will see that at the end it just looks perfect, like it's perched right on the little flower petals. As you see, I used the glossy accents also to make sure that it would stay in place, because these stickers that I have are not new. Then I added a little bit more stenciling on this card. I think this was the one that showed the most of the background stencils, so I needed to balance the colors. When that was done, I added a couple more stickers on this card. I also glued them down at the end with glossy accents. And then the bird needed to get outlined with black, and I used gel pen and I blended the marks with some water. Then this card is finished. For the last card, I selected some metal embellishments, and first I had to cut off some loops from the ends because those were for braids and I didn't need them. And then I had to paint these birds. Some footage is missing and you will not see it completely getting done, but I added two other metal stickers at the end to finish this card. And as you see, I'm painting the birds and those extra elements too with acrylic. And I also use a stamp to add the ampersand between the two words. This is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed the process. Let me know what you think in the comments. That's all for today. Bye bye.